The 2026 NFL Draft is very weak at the running back position, and as a result, people are trying to force players up the board. And I think that has been the case with Notre Dame running back Jadarian Price, who has continuously been a name I've seen in first-round mocks over the last couple of weeks. And today, we're going to talk about why I like Price, and ultimately, if I think he is a player worth investing in inside the top 50. But what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and if you guys are new to the channel, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. I'm trying to get to 10,000 subscribers before the draft, and it really helps me out, and it helps get this video out to more NFL draft fans like yourselves when you hit that like and subscribe button. Comment down below which prospects you guys would like to see me talk about in a future episode just like this, and without further ado, let's get into it. Jadarian Price was a 4-star recruit in the 2022 recruiting class who has spent his entire career at Notre Dame. I think when you look at the raw stats, it doesn't really give the full picture on who Price has been as a player for the Fighting Irish. He's been the number 2 and number 3 running back his entire career, but he's still flashed some really high upside for the position. Throughout his entire collegiate tenure, Price has 1,690 yards, 21 touchdowns on 281 carries. As a number 2 back, he's been one of the more productive in all of college football, and over the last few weeks has been generating a lot of draft buzz, with big-time experts like Connor Rogers and Daniel Jeremiah predicting him to go in the first round. I think the first thing that really sticks out with Price is his quickness and how light he is on his feet, and I think it makes him a really difficult player to bring down in the open field. I think Price is fantastic at putting his foot in the dirt and making quick cuts and forcing guys to miss. Price had 32 missed tackles forced, and while he ran a slower 40 time than many were anticipating, I still think that Price makes up for it with very good quickness and the ability to make cuts to the outside. He's really smart at finding the right angles to get runs to the outside, and I think he's got the ability to make big plays as a result. I also really like what Price can do on special teams. This past season for Notre Dame, Price was one of the most electric punt returners in football, with multiple massive returns, 2 touchdowns on the year as well. And while he did run a slower 40 time, like we talked about at a 4.49, I still think that his game speed is better than what he tested at. And he showed that all year, particularly in the return game, where I thought he had home run upside at the running back position, which is pretty rare to see. Lastly, I think Jadarian Price has very good contact balance. He is an incredibly difficult player to try and bring down, and I thought he did a really decent job of breaking tackles, fighting for extra yardage, and not going down on first contact. That is one of the traits I value the most in a running back, and Price checks that box. He's not the most powerful player in the world, but he's got good footwork, and he provides a lot when it comes to breaking tackles, with 3.92 yards after contact per attempt, which is a fantastic number for a college running back. While Price has some interesting traits, there are still some areas of his game that really concern me, and I question what his upside actually is in the NFL. For one thing, I don't think Price has good enough vision. I have seen other people talk about his vision pretty highly, but when I watch the tape, I don't think he navigates the backfield very well, and there were a lot of instances of him running into the back of his offensive lineman. On top of that, very rarely did I feel like he was able to create for himself. A lot of his best plays are ones that came off of really good blocking by the offensive line, but there weren't too many instances where Price was able to make something out of nothing. He's not a creative enough runner to my liking, and I don't think he has good enough vision to be a true number 1 back, and when he's lacking those traits, plus the lack of a really good top gear, and while he does have better game speed than testing speed, I do worry about that for Price at the next level. I also think balance and blitz recognition weren't great from Price either. He is a pretty average blocker, but there were a lot of times when he ended up on the ground and, as a result of lunging when trying to pick up a free rusher, found himself in the dirt. I don't see him being an impactful player in the blocking department, and I think that could hurt him as well, and his receiving production has also been incredibly limited, so I do worry about if he's got 3-down appeal at the next level. Lastly, fumbles have been a pretty big issue for Price throughout his entire career. He has to do a better job of taking care of the football, or ultimately, it will get him put on the bench. Price had 5 fumbles this year and has 6 in his college career, and a lot of them coming in the red zone. I don't know how this is going to affect his draft stock, but I do see ball security as an issue, and when it gets into these short yardage situations, for whatever reason, Price has struggled to hold on to the football. Jadarian Price is a very interesting player, but I will say I think he's becoming one of the more overhyped players in this draft class. He has good quickness, but I don't think he's got great burst or long speed. I don't think he's got good vision. He's not a very creative runner and has struggled to hold on to the football throughout his career. I think he's got great contact balance. He has some good tools. I like the size, but I wouldn't take Jadarian Price in the top 50, and I think the first round hype is very rich for him, even in a weaker running back class. Price is my number 4 running back in the draft, and I have a top 75 grade on him as a prospect. In terms of a scheme fit, I think that Jadarian Price did a lot of his best work when running outside the numbers, when he saw green grass, and he was able to make really impactful plays as a wide zone type of runner. I think he would really work in a scheme that maximizes that upside, and I do view him early on as probably a higher end number 2 back, and I think that's ultimately where he's going to be viewed around the league. My player comparison for Jadarian Price is Chicago Bears running back DeAndre Swift. While Price is a bigger running back than Swift and a little bit better after contact, their scouting reports read nearly identical. Both of them are shifty running backs with good footwork. They're great when they get outside the numbers. They've got good contact balance. They are really good at making guys miss in the open field, but both of them have vision issues, ball security issues, and lack the necessary creativity for a top-tier running back. Swift has bounced around the league and has been decent and is coming off a really good year with the Bears, but his best years have come in a scheme that doesn't force him to sit and wait for blocks, and it kind of maximizes him to the outside. I think Price could be in a very similar spot at the next level, and I view him as a similar type of back. Jadarian Price is a nasty cutter. He is routinely able to make guys miss, but I do have more questions about him than I think consensus does, and ultimately, I believe that Jadarian Price will be a second-round pick in the 2026 NFL Draft.